Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Marshall, how are you today?
I'm just fine. I'm trying to figure out how I should speak in a British accent.
Right. I thought the same thing.
Yes.
Oh.
Good day, Governor. Maybe that's it.
I don't know what Shakespearean English really sounded like back in his day. So, maybe we'd have it all wrong anyway. But we are here to talk about Shakespeare to some degree in our latest episode of the Workplace Book Club. Hamlet, a tiny little excerpt from Act 1 of Hamlet. And we talked about this just a little bit before we came on air here. But let's just go ahead and say this, Mike, before we get going. We don't necessarily understand every word of this section, right? Like the grammar doesn't totally make sense. The syntax doesn't totally make sense on a couple of the final lines. And I guess we're plowing ahead because that's sort of our point is like you don't need to go get a PhD in literature to read this stuff. The point is that you read this stuff and glean some gold from it because you take time to wrestle with it. So that is what we're going to do today with a little piece of Hamlet.
Yes, I must say that I'm often, perplexed by the complexities of the English writing.
Me too. So I'll just set it up. This is a little speech from Polonius, who has a son, and the son's about to go on a journey, and he offers him a few precepts. He says a few precepts, just a little bit of advice for his memory. And this, Shakespeare's loaded with stuff that has just been injected into the English language and has never left. This same little speech where Polonius is giving his son some advice before he hits the road. You get lines like, neither borrower nor lender be. You get lines like, to thine own self be true. And there's another one that you'll hear as we go through here that's pretty darn famous too. But we pulled out a little bit here, just 7 lines. And I'll just quickly read these. Remember, it's sort of meant to be poetry. So I'll just try to read it and then we'll talk. So here we go. Hamlet, Act 1, Polonius. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy. Rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man. And they in France of the best rank and station are of a most select and generous chief in that. So there's the quote. Why don't I read it one more time? It's nice and short, and I'll go ahead and say it says habit in here. I take that to mean habit like a nun's habit, in other words, clothes.
Right. Yeah, articles of clothing. Yeah.
Articles of clothing, yeah. Right. So I'll quickly read this one more time. Polonius's advice to his son here in Hamlet. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy. Rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man, and they in France of the best rank and station are of a most select and generous chief in that. So there we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There's like, I'm not sure if I was reading books and thinking about them in this manner, I would only read one book in a lifetime.
Right. It's pretty dense to get through, right?
Oh yeah, because just the first 2 sentences.
Yeah.
The first sentence period, right? Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice.
Yeah.
Right. It's the old, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yep.
Use them in the same proportions.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is you noticed how many buts we get. We have several opposites that are set up. You're to give every man thy ear, but you're to give few men your voice. And then the next line, kind of similar, take each man's censure, but reserve your own judgment. Don't give censure, I guess, is maybe another way of saying that. So, in fact, maybe we ought to just stop there before we move on to some of the other opposites here. What I'll ask this as sort of a question to get us rolling, but listening, taking censure, what do they have in common? You're give every man thy ear, take each man's censure. What do they have in common that they're set up in the sentences that way?
Well, I think the beginning of each one it's all about listening.
Uh-huh.
It's all about taking in the world around you, taking in the what others are saying, and seeing what you can learn from that. And so, give every man thy ear. Right, I want to listen to opinions, even opinions I may not agree with, and then before you speak, right, make sure that you're not doing the majority of the talking. That when you're talking, you're not learning anything. Right, you can't learn by talking. You can only learn by listening.
Right.
And so, the same with the take each man's censure. You could replace censure with criticism.
Yeah.
Right. Take each man's criticism. Right. So you want to listen to, right, what do we tell all our clients? Right. Feedback is a gift.
That's right.
Right. And so
that's right.
He's saying, right, so feedback is a gift. If somebody's telling you something, especially if it's difficult to hear, you should listen. But at the same time, don't be quick to criticize others.
Yeah.
And wait until the moment is right before you share that type of criticism with somebody else. So, two great examples of listening and feedback and the importance of both.
It makes me think of the Bible verse from the book of James that says, be slow to speak, slow to get angry, quick to listen. Slow to speak and slow to get angry. You get a double whammy there. Just be quick to listen. That's the one thing you need to do. But speaking, especially in moments like this, right? I take in your censure, and it's so easy for me to just immediately want to ping back with, what you've got wrong is, and instead basically saying, take that in and keep your mouth shut. Just keep taking it in.
Well, it goes back to the feed forward exercise we do, where after somebody gives you some advice, your only response that you're allowed to give is thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
You can't dissect the advice. You can't tell them where they're wrong. You can't tell them where they're right. You can't tell them where you disagree. Right. You just go, thank you.
Now, that's well, go ahead and finish that thought, because
and what I find is it's insanely difficult.
Right. As I just interrupted you just now, right?
Exactly. Almost no one can do it, right? You'll like, okay, the rule is simple. Tell them your problems. They're going to give you advice. When they're done, say thank you. That's the whole exercise, right? That's the whole setup. And you'll see, right? People, well, yeah, that's interesting. Have you thought about doing this? Well, or here's what I would do. Well, I tried that and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like no, just say thank you and think about.
Yeah.
Right. What was the elements that were present in the feedback you were given, and what were the nuggets that might be useful?
And of course, that's also a very freeing thing, to not have to come up with an answer on the fly to this criticism and just say, thank you for giving me that feedback. You've given me a lot to think about, and walk away or what have you. It's incredibly freeing to not have to have an answer in that moment.
Yeah, and you're better able to listen to what's being said, because you're not crafting your response. You've shut that part of your brain down and say, all right, I'm going to be in full listening mode. Yeah. And you listen better, you listen deeper. And even me, I like to say, positive things, so even saying, man, that was good. I appreciate that. No, you just made a judgment on it. Right. So you shouldn't even do that. Just go, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now let me think about that.
Well, so somebody is probably thinking this, and I think it's worth us saying it out loud, because I notice that Shakespeare does not say, to listen to only good censure. You know, it doesn't say on here, you know, make sure that criticism is accurate before you take it in, and then make sure you listen to it. It just says, take each man's censure. Should you really do that?
Right. Well, it was, I think it was Emerson who said something to the effect of, you should only listen to criticism from worthy folks. Right.
Yeah,
He said it much more eloquently, but yeah. And then I've also heard it said, you should never take criticism from people whom you wouldn't take advice from. It's like, right. So I do think there is a waiting, not like waiting, a pause, but waiting as far as, how much credence do you give? I'm going to listen to all the criticism, and I'm going to give more credence to criticism from people who I respect, admire, and believe care about me being a better at whatever it is that we're talking about.
Yeah. Now, I think I could even make the argument, I can still listen to your criticism. I just may discount it in my head, but I'm going to take it, but I'm not going to, have a big argument with you about it, or disprove your point or anything like that. I'm just going to take it, and I'll reserve my judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll take it. I may not give it as much weight, but I do want to hear
right.
it. Right. Yeah. So yeah, just in those two lines, right? There's some incredible.
We could stop there, right?
Yeah. That was like really good stuff, man.
Well, so I didn't want to stop there, because these next lines all have to do with clothes. And I find it fascinating that they come on the heels of this whole advice about, criticism and listening. So, there's sort of no verb here. It's just sort of the sentence almost starts in the middle. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy. As much as you can afford, that's the level of clothes you should buy. But there's another but here, but not expressed in fancy. And then a second set, rich clothing, but not gaudy. So those are the opposites there. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy. Rich, not gaudy. What exactly is the advice about clothing here? What's his point?
Well, I think his point is not to look like a pimp from the 70s series.
That's all I can think in my head too.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're walking around looking like Huggy Bear, probably not good. But I think right. So quality doesn't have to be gaudy. Yeah. And you can tell when somebody's wearing a quality piece of clothing by the way it hangs and looks and the material and stuff but it doesn't have to sparkle. It doesn't have to have sequins and Swarovski
or have a giant brand name on it.
Right. So yeah, it doesn't have to be gaudy for me to know that it's quality.
Yeah. And it is something to be said for, well, this is sort of this is a disagreement my wife and I've had. I once had a client who was a millionaire, just sort of like looked me up and down, like he just bloop, and then he said, "Hey, Mark," but I could tell in the back of his mind he had seen my clothing. There was something about it that displeased him, and I wasn't quite put together as well as I could have been and should have been to not be noise in his system. And so I'm not sure that I was gaudy, but probably I hadn't bought as much clothing as my purse could buy. That's probably a fair statement. Mm-hmm. And so I can sort of get this idea of that it will come off wrong. But I'll tell you what I did though is I went and sort of got some advice on clothing, and I upgraded my wardrobe a little bit, and I spent a little bit of money doing it. And my wife was like, "Why are you buying all these old-fashioned things?" That was the argument. She's like, "Why are you buying all these old-fashioned things?" And I said, "They're not old-fashioned, they're timeless." Ooh. So yeah, I read somewhere, Tony Bennett in an interview, he said, that somebody asked him, what's the secret to your classic look? And he said, it's the lapels. Come again? The lapels? He said, yeah, the lapels. Not too narrow, not too wide. Like, don't try to make a statement with your lapels. Keep your suit lapels just right in the middle. Keep it nice and timeless and classic. So in my head, that's what I picture here is, somebody who is not doing this for a show. They're doing this to look classic. There's my take on it.
No, I think you're spot on. And yeah, you see, there's still something about a three-piece suit.
Yeah.
You see somebody in a three-piece suit, you're like, they got it going on.
Right. Right.
That's a good look.
Right.
It might not be in at the moment, right? It tends to go in and out every 7 years, but
yeah.
But no matter when you see it, you go, that's a nice look, right? There's a little extra effort there. There's somebody who takes pride in their appearance. They probably take pride in other aspects of their personal and professional life.
Yeah,
right?
We make inferences here, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We've been, you and I've been talking about this recently, the idea of implicit bias and unconscious bias. And I guess sort of part of the point here is, if we're saying clothes make the man, or the way Shakespeare originally said it, for the apparel oft proclaims the man, we're basically saying, yeah, people are going to have absolute biases as they see what you're wearing. So you should probably work with that.
Oh yeah. Well, the young people, have a saying, right? They're like, fond of saying, "Don't judge me." Well, I got news for you, young people. Everybody, everywhere, all the time is judging you. Right? They are making, based upon your looks, your speech, your appearance, your timeliness, your lack of timeliness, your grammar, your punctuation, every aspect of you is telling them something. And they're making, whether if you want to change it to inferences, that's fine. Generalities, that's fine, right? But us old people just call them judgments, right? We're judging you based upon what do they say? Don't judge a man based on the cut of his jib. I don't even know what a jib is, right? But apparently, if your jib ain't right, people are going to judge you. So you need to have your.
It reminds me. I saw a meme that had it was like some woman who, I think it was like a tramp stamp tattoo or something that said "Only God can judge me," and that was the top half, and the bottom half had God from Michelangelo's creation scene, where he's reaching out to point at Adam, and he's pointing at her and going, "You're a whore." Yeah. Who is it? Yeah, Chris Rock does a bit on that, right? Where if you shouldn't judge people by the clothes they wear. However, he figures out that if he walked around in a police uniform, people would approach him and say, "Hey, listen, there's some crime over here. Can you help me?" And he'd be like, you're judging me. Whoa.
You're judging me because of the uniform I'm wearing, and automatically assuming I'm somebody in law enforcement who can help. Right. That is wrong. You shouldn't judge people based upon the outfit.
That's funny.
It's like, no, it's going to happen. So, even, in Shakespeare's time, this was something that was obviously worthy of, some of the precepts being listed as fatherly advice. So this is good stuff. So what do we take away from all of this?
Yeah, this is, to me, it's like, what are the practical ways to honor this advice? That's, in my head, what I think about. And, do looks matter? I think, whether or not they should, do looks matter? The answer is yes, they do. And so you've got to deal with that, right? I mean, Disney is famous for having mirrors, full-length mirrors, I believe, before you go out on stage, quote unquote, into one of the theme parks. So if you're, a janitor about to go out, you still are required to look in that mirror and say, okay, am I smiling? Is my grooming accurate? Am I, do I look the part so that I can go present myself as someone who can help people have a great time today and take care of them and keep them safe and so on and so forth. So there's maybe sort of an extremely niche example of what it might look like to really care about your appearance in the workplace. But I feel like there's definitely something that we could all do to make sure we're regulating ourselves. I don't know if that's a fair way to put it. What do you think?
No, I definitely, and on both counts, whether it comes to being more aware of how you're listening, or being more aware of how you present yourself to the world. So raising awareness for both. So I've never heard anybody, I've never been told or heard anybody say that they listen too much.
Right.
You're too good of a listener.
Yeah.
Not sure I've ever heard that criticism levied at anybody.
Right.
So, and then I was always told that you should always dress for the occasion, and if you're in doubt, overdress, because you can always take the outfit down a level, but you can't take it up a level once you get there.
That's right.
And so if I get there and I'm wearing a suit and tie and everybody else is just in a jacket, I can take the tie off.
And let me throw in one more on that regard. I don't know why, because I was raised lower middle class, I guess. I was raised in a trailer. We had hand-me-downs. It was pretty modest upbringing, but my mom had this thing about that her boys were going to learn how to wear suits, and I had never thought of that as a anything other than an uncomfortable thing that I had to do as a child, to wear, suits. But guess what? Now that I'm in the business world and I deal with a lot of young people sort of entering the workplace, you need to learn how to have a jacket on. You need to learn how to wear dress socks with dress pants and dress shoes, not athletic socks, not crew socks, not socks that I can't see also. Things like that are going to, it's not that there's a uniform. It's that you look comfortable in things that are appropriate for that workplace. I think that's the real kicker. I read somewhere, I've got a seersucker suit. I was trying to figure out what to wear with it, and I came across a piece of advice online that said, hey, the one thing you have to wear with a seersucker suit is confidence. If you don't have that confidence, don't put that suit on. You will look so goofy, and you'll see people, sort of like in a suit, just sort of, they shift and they pull things and they just don't quite know what to do with their body and with the clothes on their body. I think that's part of what we're talking about here. Clothes make the man, and it's partly like you being comfortable with those clothes that are going to make the man. So for what that's worth.
Well, that explains why you have a picture of Matlock on the wall. Right.
I've heard it all.
Yeah.
Matlock,
he wore the seersucker, and he looked, like he owned it. Yeah.
That's right.
He was confident. Yeah. Good stuff. This was 7 lines of a classic, and yet there's so much to talk about. So and again, it's got to be just a thing you wrestle with. If you don't understand every line of this. We didn't even get to the France part. Don't worry about it. There's plenty to go with here. Yeah.
Plenty.
France, they get no respect. They got good fries. So no, I think this is definitely something you'd have to wrestle with, read a few times, think about, discuss with somebody else. And would it make a good group discussion?
Absolutely.
Right. So maybe in a coaching situation, right? Here's 2 lines from Hamlet. Let's talk a little bit about listening and the importance of that.
How about in the employee orientation that you do with every employee on how to dress in the workplace? I mean, this is deep, meaty stuff, and it improves you when you wrestle with it. So hope you are able to do that, dear listeners.
Oh, thank you. And I know I'm richer for the experience. So thank you for reintroducing me to another classic. And so this concludes the 3rd episode of Guys with Outlooks with Books, or the Workplace Book Club. whichever title you find most helpful. Let's throw it over to I'm sure he's got some English blood in him somewhere. Our announcer, Mr. John Wolf.
And that, I guess, is that. It doesn't take a genius. No rights reserved, nothing trademarked, copyrighted, or even original. Feel free to give it to anyone, anytime, using any and all media formats. Warning, Mark and Mike may or may not make another one. I'm your announcer, and I did not get paid a nickel to do this. They won't even let me tell you my name. So until next time, if there is a next time, stay safe. Be well.
That's good enough.